There is another tremor with an epicenter in Sacramento that you should know about. A seemingly innocuous bill that would make it legal to loiter. Loitering, you might ask? It's such a small thing. Nothing to see here. Well, our guest, Dr. Stephany Powell, Director of Law Enforcement Training and Survivor Services at the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, sees SB 357 a little differently. And maybe it's her 30 years in law enforcement as a retired LAPD officer that gives her insight into the context of what does it mean for law enforcement if they are no longer to approach people who are loitering. It's great to have you with us, Dr. Powell. I appreciate you coming on to give us the understanding and the context of what SB 357 means from a law enforcement perspective. So let's start off with what is SB 357? Explain that to us.
Thank you so much, sir, for even having me come on.
You bet.
So what SB 357 does, it repeals the loitering laws, including all those that are related to prostitution, even sex buying and pimping. So what that basically looks like is that it severely cripples law enforcement in its ability to arrest and prosecute even human sex traffickers. So not only was I an officer with LAPD, but I was a vice sergeant. So I dealt with the issue of prostitution, and from there I've segued into assisting victims of human trafficking, so I know it from both ends. So what that will do is say that it will be okay for people to loiter in front of businesses, anything that is public, businesses, parks, for the purposes of prostitution. So if you're a business owner and you have people loitering in front of your business for the purposes of prostitution, you call the police. If this is repealed, the police will be able to do nothing about it. The reason why this was even proposed in the first place was that it is the assumption that loitering laws are used to merely harass marginalized people, and that by repealing this will help people to experience less discrimination. The problem is that it causes more blight in those same communities. Because if you're a business owner in South Central LA and the police are unable to help you, or if you are a community member that sends your little girl to the store and she's being harassed by buyers, the police would not be able to do anything about it, because it also repeals law enforcement's ability to make contact either by arrest or by citing sex buyers who would be loitering for the purposes of prostitution.
Wow. And this leads to a very dark place, but let's just focus in on what it's like as a sergeant in that department. We're not talking about people that are like soccer moms hanging out in front of stores. We're talking about people who are probably conducting themselves in a manner that's less than appropriate, particularly if there's young people. Tell us what is it like when you have these folks hanging out in front of stores? It's not they're not serving tea and crumpets. We're talking about an environment that's patently transparent. You know what's going on. These people let their inner selves hang out. Tell us a little bit about what that environment's like.
So not only is it transparent to law enforcement, but it's transparent to the community as well. And so as a vice sergeant that actually used this loitering law, you're right. We were not stopping the soccer moms or the community people that were just, going to the store or walking to the bus stop. It was people that were clearly flagging down cars, dressed in a particular way. It was obvious that they were loitering for the purposes of prostitution. And so it wasn't just targeting people due to discrimination purposes because they were either black or transgender. It was for those that were breaking the law of loitering and were out in public for the purposes of prostitution.
So Scott Wiener, who's the author of this bill, is using the sort of the race card and the transgendered card in order to do away with this law, this tool of law enforcement. Where does this all lead? So let's just say SB 357 passes. What is the, because one of the things we talk about is the slippery slope. These things don't exist in isolation. There's a goal here. What is that?
So, and I'm so glad you asked that question, because the goal is to pave the way to full decriminalization of prostitution, which would mean prostitution would be legal in the state of California. So buyers, traffickers, and those that are prostituted would not go to jail. It would make it legal. The thought process is they squeeze this bill in secretly, like you said, a slippery slope, and paying attention to the trimmer. SB 357 is the trimmer, because the real earthquake is going to occur when they present the idea of full decriminalization of prostitution. And you're right, they have hijacked the social justice movement because they're saying that it's only targeting marginalized communities. But that's not the answer. That's not the answer to blighted communities, because then that brings the notion that marginalized communities want to participate in the act of prostitution, which we know that is not true. So it perpetuates further stereotypes.
And along with that, what occurs to me as someone who has been in this business for a long time, that there's an element of, gosh, the libertarian in me says, okay, two consenting adults, let them do what they're going to do, and let that be that. But that is not the complete story. There is a very, very dark side to this, which is what gets people into this lifestyle in the first place, and it is the crime of sex trafficking of individuals that don't want to do this, that are brought into this industry nefariously. Speak to that part of the issue, because this isn't a lady that decided to make a little extra change on the side doing escorting services. This is the dark underbelly that SB 357, if it passes, is going to open up like a can of worms.
So absolutely. So I'll give you a very quick example. First of all, by paving the way to full decriminalization, by paving the way to pass SB 357, it will allow human sex trafficking to live under a legal system, right? And so as we know, an officer cannot make an arrest unless a misdemeanor is committed in their presence. So let's say I'm by sergeant. I see someone who I don't know if they're 16 or they're 21. I can use that, and they're loitering for the purposes of prostitution. I can make that stop and do that investigation, because as we know, if that person is under 18 years old, by the means of them being out for the purposes of prostitution automatically makes them a victim of human trafficking. I would not be able to make that investigation if this is repealed, because I would not have probable cause to stop.
Gotcha.
It also, and so, and it's been shown even in places where prostitution is legal, in Germany and in New Zealand, where someone will say, well, human trafficking is not occurring there anymore. No, it is still occurring. No one is paying attention to it because it is within a legal system.
Amazing. We've got about 30 seconds left. Tell us what the status of SB 357 is and what people can do if they're concerned about this particular slippery slope.
So right now, it is sitting in the Assembly Appropriation Committee. What we need is phone calls, letters, emails to that committee. But not only that, we need you to call your own assembly member. The chair is Lorena Gonzalez. The vice chair is Frank Bigelow. People need to know that we are opposed and do not want this, not only in marginalized communities, because it won't just stay there. We don't want it in any community in California.
Amen. Dr. Powell, thank you so much for joining us here on the Jen and Don Show. We'll have you back because this stuff is not going to stop. This supermajority in Sacramento is going to continue to bring these types of bills forward. It's great to have you as a resource. It's great to have you on the Jen and Don Show. Appreciate your time today.
Sir, thank you so much for having me and the good work that you do.
You bet. Thank you. More up ahead on the Jen and Don Show. It is Spill the Tea Thursday. Jennifer Van Laar joins us next.
Jen.